this is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
The crystallization of a vision can seem like an impossible task. Taking what you see in your head and turning it into reality is a universal struggle that the majority wrestle with. Trying to create something out of the ether and wishing our ideas into existence. It is difficult to allow another inside your head to rework your thoughts and ideas, allowing them to raise your baby with the hopes that they can do a better job that is beyond your capabilities. Trusting that their talent can complement your dream. There are modern-day alchemists who work in the medium of creation, taking those thoughts and ideas in your head, shaping them until they are something beautiful, turning that caterpillar in your mind into a beautiful butterfly.
I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome in our very own Andrew Santiago.
Very own.
I appreciate it, guys.
To talk about the suffering of a podcast producer. Andrew has a unique ability to turn the ordinary into magic. And that's why we wanted to have you in. And we were just talking about you on Instagram Live tonight.
I appreciate it.
And if you notice, we don't have headphones on today because we don't have a man behind the glass, so we don't have to talk to anybody.
I actually broke through the glass. Okay, so we don't even have a glass anymore in studio. I just broke right through it after the IG Live.
Drew, how do we... Oh, that's right. You're right here. How do we sound?
Drew, how do we
It's tough. It's tough. I'm trying my best.
But, we've been looking for a way to get you in here because you have certain sufferings that go on within your business that people don't realize. You're like a hairdresser in the media world where people just come in and say, make me look beautiful.
Yeah, what can I do to make it shine?
Yes.
How do I shine?
And you just make it work. I've done that to you several times. Before we get into anything, let's get into our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We buy our cars from Toyota because we really don't trust anybody. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So Drew, we've known each other for a little time, and
yeah.
Let's go back to the beginning of how we met. It was a very serendipitous type of.
We have big words
today. It was a
today.
Prairie Fire episode 9, serendipitous.
Hashtag this for the we got to throw that one out for De Palma. But Mike and I were doing something for Blue Magazine.
Yes.
And you actually, I think I started talking to Katia first because you were in the room recording.
That is correct.
He was busy that day.
And Katia and I got into it about
You guys had just came back from Florida.
Yeah, well,
we did.
You guys had just came back from Florida.
Yeah, and there were all of our friends. Like, we knew everybody there. We got to talking to... You were in the room recording, so I was talking to Katia, and I was kind of breaking her chops a little bit about... She's talking about women have it worse, and I just grabbed onto it, and I said, my wife gave birth to 2 kids, and I didn't feel a damn thing. Everybody says childbirth, and it just, boom.
I said, listen, the kids came out of me first, and it didn't feel that bad.
Yeah. Well, we had a little bit more enjoyment when they came out. It was a little bit easier to kind of go through with us. With most of us, anyway. I don't say everybody.
Not me. I faked every orgasm.
You fake?
Still faking it.
Yeah, fake them. So
girls could get pregnant from spit.
Oh, man. Damn.
So
we have like a certain mark before we get into the show.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Way to blow right past that.
As the producer, I'm going to be fixing that. Thank you, Mike.
But you came out of the room and we met for the first time, and you said, and we just started talking about audio equipment. I talked about the podcast and and you asked me what kind of microphones I use.
Immediately.
And, you said, the owner and operator of A&J Media Studios. And you showed me a picture, you showed me all this stuff, and I was like, wow, that's something pretty interesting. So tell us a little bit about yourself. The audience knows way too much about Mike and I, so why don't you tell them?
They do know a good amount about. And every week that you guys tune in, it's even better because all the work that's being put in, we appreciate.
Well, I've said it numerous times that my relaxed time, my fun time in doing this podcast is when the lights go on, the cameras start, and I can just... because all the work's done.
Yes.
But when the lights go on, that's when he has to work.
Right. It's the reverse for you. When the lights go on, that's when your stress level goes up.
Yeah. That's when I have to turn around and say, okay, well, it's anybody who's working behind the board. First off, if they're really working with your show, really working with your podcast, they're going to turn around and they should be taking notes. That's just going to make your life a little bit easier in the future. Because realistically, it could be little small things. Maybe, we all have the scratch or something that we could kind of switch up.
So that's my thing. I'll have these little itches come up. I'll itch my eyebrow.
Fix my headphones.
Yeah. So when you see those things, the difference is we kind of cut live. So when you see those things, you really have to be prepared. And then once you get used to listening to people and you know how they're going to end their sentence, especially if it's somebody new that you just met, then you're just kind of like, okay, you have to kind of catch the rhythm of speech.
Well, so I know a little bit about that because when we used to be on audio and I would have to go in and edit with Mike and I knew everything. I knew the speech patterns. I could almost, it's like reading the Matrix.
Yes.
I can see everything. And I imagine over time that happens with you, but where did you start?
Well, it all started, truth in my heart, music artist, making music, making songs,
I've seen
right?
the videos.
You've seen the videos, right? So I love it. And somewhere around the age of about 18, 19, I realized I didn't have the right vernacular to speak to an editor behind the board. I just couldn't. I had these ideas, and when you have ideas in your mind, I can't speak them. I'm trying to tell them that I need this effect, or I need this, I need that.
You know the effect, but you can't verbalize it.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. So imagine trying to create something, and you know that the tools are out there, but you have no way of explaining what you're looking for.
But you're a Patterson kid, right?
Yeah.
So did you get the echo? Like, I want the echo of a bullet off of the building.
Echo, delay, listen, Patterson, listen, I've lived in plenty of places.
Sounds of sirens around you.
That's Patterson's home bringing. Patterson, Wayne, and Wanacue, Haskell for a little bit. I've actually moved around for quite a little bit, so I always give a shout out to all my cities because they'll be like, well, you lived in Patterson for this time. You lived in Haskell. I've seen parts of New Jersey all over. So from the country to the city, you get different experiences in different lives. Right. So
I didn't hear any country in any of those towns. What is it, Haskell country?
Haskell's a little country.
From Patterson?
Yeah. From Patterson?
There's like one tree in Patterson.
Haskell to Wanacue, it was a big change. If you go from kids walking into the bodega in the corners to all of a sudden there's kids riding bikes, going fishing, crab fishing, something I've never done before, where the mayor pulls up and he's just like, hey, where are you guys going? Oh, here you go. Go have some fun. Here goes some passes. Go fishing. Yeah. That's never happened in Patterson. Regardless of who's the mayor, no offense to any mayor. When was the last time a mayor pulled up to any person in Patterson and was just like, here goes some fishing passes. Go behind Kennedy and have fun.
Well, that's pretty cool. I never thought of it. I never thought of it that way. But in a lot of ways,
kids bike riding to bike stealing.
Yeah. But in a lot of ways, the people in Patterson have a little bit extra advantage because there's so many programs, and I've seen this firsthand. Yes. There's so many different programs that are set up for the youth in Patterson, and it's sort of to keep them out of the bad element of Patterson. And there's funds available, there's financing available. Again, I've seen the video, and it's sort of like a color me bad type of. The wife beater.
All right, so first thing first, that was my first ever music video.
Shot illegally in Patterson.
I did it all freehand. Shout out to my boy Johnny. I'm gonna give him a shout out. Johnny was the first one to say, "Hey, I'll go with you," while we were driving, and he was holding the camera. And I had this idea, but rather than hesitate and wait on it, I said, "Why not just do it?" I mean, why wait? Right? I have the tools. I have a camera, right? What else do I need? I have a camera and I have a song.
It's pretty damn good for your first shot out.
It's not bad,
no,
right?
It's not.
Fun thing about that video, too, the way I was able to kind of lip sync the whole thing, I was playing the music through my phone in my back pocket the whole time.
High tech.
Yeah, well, listen, I found a way, right? Because I was like, well, how?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, so I put it right in my back pocket. And if you notice, all right, anybody who watches the video, if you notice, there's a scene where I'm sitting on the bridge by the Burger King.
Yes.
Behind me is my phone the whole time, just playing out. It is what it is. I made it happen. But I had to learn how to speak, basically. I had to learn how to speak what I was doing. At the time, I was actually with a group. And it was very different because the producer at the time didn't really support me learning how to record or edit.
Well, isn't that the way of most people in charge? You do things a lot differently. I will say that. But most people in charge want to kind of keep the people in the dark a little bit, and it sort of solidifies their value.
Yeah, so you don't take their job.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, yes, I could understand that. If you know how to edit, then what's to stop you from saying, hey, I need hiring an editing engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, at the time when we were in a group, I was like, this is for the betterment of the team. If somebody knows how to edit and clean up the tracks, then that's a win. Now our tracks sound better. Now the music sounds better. Now we could produce more. So after a while, obviously it clashes a little bit. What do? It was great. Shake hands, walk away. That's it. And then I started my own thing.
Well, what was the age when you walked away from, say, quote unquote, music business?
Oh,
You never left the music
yeah, I never
business.
really, yeah, I don't
But
ever really say I left the
as a
music
vocalist,
business.
let's say.
As a vocalist, I kind of strayed away from doing shows where people would say, hey, we want you on the show. We want you to come perform live. I got to the age where I was like, well, I've done quite a few shows. I've done parades. I've done festivals. I've done all these things. How much?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the moment you turn around and you tell somebody how much, what happens?
They're like, well, you're not that good.
It's like, well, you know, you get your promotion. If you sell 20 tickets, you'll make this much, and this is how much money you get in your pocket. I was like, but you just told me that for your venue, I did great. Being the fact that you want me back, right? So if you want somebody back,
they did a good job.
Pay.
Yeah.
Clearly I entertained the crowd that was there. That's all it is.
So you grew up and I know this from speaking to you so much, that your father was a police officer.
Yes, over 20 years, Patterson PD.
And so you fit into our group. You know, we're not inclusive to police officers, but
That's why we let him in our group, though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
families are always our extended families.
Yes.
Always become part of our little group. So it was a good fit when we finally came to this studio. But you move on from where did you go to school for audio engineering?
Yes, I graduated from New York Institute of Audio Research. It was the big, hey, I'm like stepping out on my own. I'm going to learn this either way. And I went for 9 months in New York, going back and forth. And it was probably one of the best 9 months when it came to music and meeting people and shaking hands that you could do. I love New York.
So you fit in there, because a lot of times you want to do something, you get involved in it, and it's just not for you.
No, I've enjoyed every minute. Going when you go out there and you're like in the city, that's one thing I love about New York. It's alive. So every time you're going in, you're like, oh, this person's doing this. There's never anything dry happening. You know, we were out there just a couple weeks ago. We did Podfest, right? And you see all these movements, Elmo's walking around you and all this other nonsense. And you're like, only in New York. And I always find it interesting because look how many talented people between New York and New Jersey live, right? All talented. And they all have this idea. And I'm like, we live right next to New York.
Everybody
People
believes.
move to New York to become a star.
Exactly.
Well, there's a mass of people in New York who believe that they're talented.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the difference. And
Like
I've seen some
Cowboy?
real talent in some of the shows that happen in Central Park. I've seen some real talent in there, but I've also seen Elmo with the hat flipped back and the underwear sticking out of the back.
You know, New York is tough. At the end of the day, New York is tough. But if you can make it,
They'll chew you up and spit you out in New York if you're.
well, that's the thing about the industry in general, right? The Suffering Podcast. We're going on over 100 episodes, right?
We're up to 106 recorded.
106 recorded. We say it all the time. Whenever there's an IG Live, you guys say it both all the time. Most episodes don't make it past a certain number, make it past 6 or past 8. To really make it, you have to keep pushing. There's no stopping. You have to keep pushing.
Right.
So even the people in New York, whether artists or whatever it is, you have to keep pushing.
But there's oddities. There's oddities in that entertainment business. And I'm talking entertainment like the people who walk around Central Park, or not Central Park, the Times Square in the Superman costumes. I was in there a couple weeks ago, and I'm on the phone with my youngest boy, and I'm like, hey, there's Spider-Man taking a piss in the corner.
You get the naked cowboy over there too, right?
Naked cowboy, the naked
still
cowboy.
around?
Yeah, he's still around.
Listen, not for nothing. Think about
That
that.
guy's like 60 years old.
But that man came to New York. And he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play guitar in a cowboy hat, my underwear, and a pair of boots. And he became a New York attraction where people are like, oh, look, it's the naked cowboy.
In the dead of winter too.
He made
Yeah.
it to the what was that? I Want to Be a Rock Star video called Nickelback.
Nickelback.
He was in the Nickelback video. Yeah.
So if you like, it's that same drive and dedication that people are willing to do something as crazy as that, but he still, technically speaking, made it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
You know, you think about that gimmick, it's a tough gimmick to do.
It caught on.
As Alicia Keys says, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
You got that right.
Hey,
Well, no, that was the best singer ever. That
Frank
came.
Don't
Sinatra.
even start.
Frank
with that.
Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
You
Don't
can
even start.
make it here. Come on, it's played at every Yankees game.
That doesn't mean anything.
How many championships do they have?
You know,
It's got to mean something.
I once
How
had
many Elvis songs that he played.
I once had an argument with
you know what it is, Mike? Too little conversation.
I once had
less conversation.
I once had an argument with somebody who was I know this is off topic.
Yes.
Who's better, Bruce Springsteen or Billy Joel? Somebody actually brought that argument up.
Okay.
So in New Jersey, probably Bruce Springsteen. In the rest of the country, Bruce Springsteen is nothing. I'm telling you now, he's nothing. Billy Joel is internationally known.
Yes.
And go to one of his concerts, it's an old man whining versus 3 hours of greatest hits. So
Piano Man says it all.
you graduate, and do you jump into a recording studio? Do you get a job?
I opened up mine immediately.
You open up yours. And what was the name?
Immediately when I graduated, I opened up in the front of my deck where I used to live at. I built a room immediately on the side and opened up Silk City. Really, it was Silk City Productions. Silk City Pro is what it started as.
I've seen that on a couple of videos.
Silk City Pro. Silk City Pro Entertainment.
Because as I was looking at this studio, as we were looking to go on video, I did my research on you. I knew.
A little bit of research.
I have to.
We're going to steal Silk City Pro from you.
Well, Silk City Productions was already, so shout out to whoever has Silk City Productions. So I went with Silk City Pro Entertainment.
We're Silk City underwear.
Silk City underwear. It's so smooth, you have to wear it.
Yes.
Okay.
You just glide off the ground.
Yeah, it just goes. It's so smooth.
Slide off the chairs.
Now, you start this new business. What is... There's always an immediate lesson that you learn that you couldn't see coming.
An immediate lesson?
There's always whenever you're starting something out on your own, there's always an immediate
Something
lesson.
you didn't think about.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Oof. I think it was something crazy. I think the first lesson that I ever truly learned was probably, it's dumb, but the window in a studio.
I know everybody can't see it, but there's a window between us and the
control room.
I guess it would be control room.
Yes.
And that's how you can watch the action going on, make sure your cuts are right.
Listen, there's a few things I could tell you that I learned off the bat as recording and editing and working with people. There's so many things off the bat. But I think one of my most, it was a silly thing. But for some odd reason, we're building the booth. We have everything right. The door closes and everything's good. And then I realized, I was like, well, how am I supposed to see them? Nothing on it. I went to school. I knew that they had a window. We had everything. So we did put a window in, but the window was, this is how you know it's one of the first studios. It was literally a window. You know, one that you could lift up. And
So you like talk to them.
You're like 227 talking.
Yeah. I was just like, hey guys, we're good. But you know, the first studio I built was actually really meant for me to record my first album. Well, not my first album, but like my first Silk City album. That's really what it was meant for. So I was teaching Johnny behind the board to work to record. I was learning, even though they showed you proper mic placement, you're dealing with different kind of mics, different kind of equipment, different kind of positions. And then you go through and you start the editing process. And the editing process, you start really understanding what's going on. How come there's clicks, these pops, headphone leakage coming through? And you're like, whoa, I need to do it again. And now you're like, man, all right, go back in there. Go back in the session, hit record, da-da-da. Or even worse, when you lay down a good track and somebody forgot to hit record. That's probably even the worst thing. It was like, so wait a sec, there's something wrong.
Yeah, we've had that on podcasts
Yeah, I
before.
was just going to say, I was just going to bring that up.
People forgot to record. There was one time I remember, and Johnny, I know he's going to watch this. I make fun of him all the time. Johnny, I had him set up the mic. I'm like, go in there, set up the studio. I go into the studio. I can't hear him. Or pardon me, he can't hear me. He's like, you're just coming in really low. Da, 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 da. So I take a look at the mic, and he had it backwards.
Okay.
I just looked.
It happens.
Problem
solved.
Problem solved.
Well, isn't that what you've become now? Is a problem solver.
Yeah.
Because there's always problems. This cord came unplugged. You forgot to switch over here. You forgot to put this setting here. And all you become is this giant problem solver.
Well, when you can fix any problem, that's a great thing. Anytime. I really kind of see what we do more as creation, more as creating. I've always said it. I believe it because when you guys come down with an idea of what you want to do for your next show, it's something new every time.
By the way, the ideas that filter into you are nothing like what him and I talk about.
It's something completely different.
We had one the other day, which I think is a good episode.
Okay.
I think it's a great episode because everybody does it. But
What is it?
It's the suffering of poop.
The suffering of poop.
Everybody poops.
Well, that's like a Beavis and Butthead that we could definitely pull that
The
episode.
suffering of flatulence.
Now listen, okay, so listen, everybody who's I want to throw this out there. What we could probably try to do for that episode, which would be really cool, if we just animated the whole episode.
That would be cool.
Like if we just animated the whole episode. Like we didn't even do like the whole thing, we just do full on animations. Like 3D animations, and it's just you guys.
You're giving someone an idea now.
Well, listen, you heard it here first on the Suffering Podcast. So
podcast hijackers out there that we know.
Yeah, we know all too well.
but you know it would be hot.
Was that Silk City? Was it profitable to the part where you could? Was that your full-time job?
So
Sustainable.
So during the good times, and I call this, Kathy could tell you, my wife, she could say he had a summer full of barbecues. I was on unemployment at the time. KB Toys, they're not around anymore, so I could say whatever. I was on unemployment on the time. I went to school, I graduated, and I'm like, all right, well, let's just go full steam. It is what it is. I got money coming in a sense. Let me just record. And when I was recording my, the first singer to come down, and I always give him, Hayner, I give him a lot of credit because it was the first time that he really kind of stepped into the booth. And when it was done and he heard himself on CD, like he didn't even pay me to do. I was energetic and ready to go as always. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I jump the gun a little bit. Before you guys could tell me to edit something, I'm like, I'm already going in and I'm excited because I could hear what I can make it become. And when I could hear that, I'm like, oh, this is going to sound amazing. So boom, boom, boom. A couple of days later after he's recording in the booth, they're like, oh, well, can you do like a demo out of it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I could definitely make like a demo. It's going to take a little work and but I already had the work done because I was already excited. I just wanted to see what I could do. Mm. And when you're doing something like that, it's
you're playing with a new toy is what you're
doing.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah.
And I've seen you when you get new toys in here, it's automatically you got to test it out, got to try it out.
Well, you got to, you guys know microphones and all this stuff cost. They do cost a good amount of money, and it's not like a pair of shoes we could just go and return or something like that. So when you invest your money in something, you really want to make sure you know how to use it.
Well, I have this thing with my children whenever they get a new electronic or something, I throw the manual at them. I'm like, read that. I'm like, why you got to read the manual? And I said, because if you read the manual, you will be able to use that to its fullest abilities.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to use one or two options on it, and that's all you're going to do. But with reading the manual, you know everything. So playing with, I get that. I'm breaking your chops.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah. But you get a new toy, you want to use that thing to its fullest ability. So did he end up paying you for the demo?
Oh, of course. Of course. At the end of the day, when you're creating something, and I tell people all the time, you get a little nervous sometimes because you're getting feedback from people, and you got to remember that you really kind of put a part of yourself out there. So I think to me, the only moment that gets scary is when it gets quiet. So like you create something and I give you something that you really like. So what do? You take it and run with it, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, this is awesome. I got what I wanted. And then you leave and like, I'm waiting for like a call or a text and I'm like, did they like it? I hope they like it. It's been, let me just follow. And they're like, oh, we loved it. It's already posted. We're already sharing it. It's already going out. I'm like, you could have just said, I like
thanks.
It. Yeah, like
thanks.
A little bit, like
good job.
Just let me know. But that's part of the creative process. That when you're releasing something, you have to just kind of be like, oh, okay. Like sometimes you have to wait a little bit. But I am blessed to say that everything that's been released, everything that I've done, that I've been a part of, the project itself, when it came out right, the feedback has always been like, wow, that was impressive. Wow, that was great.
So you were riding high on this first demo. Right out of the gate.
Oh.
Silk City is not around anymore.
Silk City, I always maintained the name.
Right.
I've always maintained the name Silk City Pro because it's a part.
Right.
So.
Did it?
No, things changed. You're talking about Silk City, and here goes the H thing. You're talking about Silk City. The music that I was releasing at the time was like on MySpace. Oh. It was like MySpace music.
Tom was listening to it.
Tom was listening. I was getting plays.
Guy had the most friends in the world.
Yeah,
listen, right. I had a song, for the video, Since You've Been Gone. Since You've Been Gone on MySpace got a lot of plays. So I sat back and I was like, oh, this is happening now.
Mm.
And I was calling, I had my friend Jack. He was my,
Wait, you got a friend, his 2 first names?
I have to call him Jack.
Okay.
Is
Is that from Incredibles?
No, it's funny. And he probably doesn't even know this. His musician name is Jack Ritt, right? But the moment we met each other in New York, in order to kind of like click with him, I was just like, oh yeah, no, I know you. You're Jack. I was like, Jack. And here goes that. This is how you know I have kids. Cinderella, the little mouse that ran around, red hat.
I have
Like,
2
oh,
boys.
Jack. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it happens. But Jack.
Kevin watches Cinderella.
I
The
watch
boys don't.
Cinderella.
Okay,
She's hot.
Cinderella, right? She had to make it to the ball, but Jack. And so it stuck with me. Jack, the Incredibles. Jack.
Mm.
And he just stayed.
So when did
We call him Drew.
Drew.
did you have any other successes past that first one, or did it?
Oh, listen, it may not. I'm always, and people, when you inquire, you ask a little bit, you learn. Listen, originally I was supposed to be scheduled on a reality TV show that was happening at one time. New York Puerto Rican Day Parade. That was probably one of my favorite things to do. That's a long parade.
Mm.
If you're ever in a parade, that is the parade to sit there and be like,
A lot of Dayglow colors in that parade. I've been there.
I was like, I need more water.
No, that's
All the water.
the Dayglow parade that you went to.
that
A little bit different.
was a rainbow parade.
Rainbow parade.
Shout out to Nick and Mark. That's right. They'll take me there. I'm going to be the
Especially Nick. Shout out to Nick.
Be
But-
Grand Marshal next year.
Yes, I've been to Puerto Rican Day parades, and it is ultra festive.
Yes. So imagine going from start to finish on those. And most of the time, because I needed to make sure that at the same time I was able to be seen. So most of the time on it, I asked the guy on the float while I was moving if I could jump on the speaker. And I jumped on the speaker and rode the whole time in the New York Puerto Rican Day Parade.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it was like,
It's because he's short. He had to get up high.
I had to. But it's a moment. So I'm proud of everything that I've accomplished and everything that I've done. And whenever I write new songs or write music or do things like that, I release it and people are like, oh, wow. They're always surprised. They're like, wait, you can rap? I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't? It's just like, you just don't. I'm like, you've never heard me then.
When this was only audio, you were strictly doing audio stuff.
Strictly audio, yes.
All right. So when did Silk City go away?
When did Silk City kind of fade?
And was that a big blow? That had to be a big blow to your ego because you thought this was
It's
it.
your baby. You built it from the beginning.
Yeah, when Silk City kind of settled down, I'm going to say settled down a little bit, it was more with the realization that I got tired of being what I call the around-the-block rapper and the around-the-block artist who was just kind of good in his town.
Mm.
And I was just kind of like, once I started understanding how the industry really was, I was just kind of like, I really like writing songs. I really like writing music. I could do this internationally if I just focus right. So stop fighting to get Silk City out. Nobody knows what Silk City Pro is. Focus on just getting your artist name out. Doing shows. Focus on that. When did it really kind of calm down? I think I had to slow down a little bit because realistically, I push my priorities in order. If you listen to most musicians, when they talk about their music career, it kind of goes backwards, right? They'll hit the music, they get big, and then they're like, all right, well, I'm a father, but I'll catch up to being a father later. I could never do that. I was like, I'm always going to be a father first, regardless. That has to be my priority. And it's funny because we just did Dad Star. So I'm sitting behind the board and I'm like, yeah, that has to be a priority. And I was just like, no, but I want to be there.
What it sounds like, and to take a lesson from Derek's book,
Yes.
is you knew what you wanted to do,
Yes.
and you knew the path that you had to take,
Yes.
and it's just, this is what I have to do to get here,
Yes.
right? But you also have this child that
Yes.
came into this world.
Yes, I was a young father, 19 when
You're
I
Puerto
found
Rican,
out.
that's
yeah, bunny. I was a bunny in high school. I say it all the time. I hopped around.
19. You were old for a father.
19. Oh, I missed my
What'd you
mark
wait
by
so
3
long?
years.
There's grandparents 19 years old in Puerto
Listen,
Rico.
I was very, very only
I'm just kidding.
Only in Puerto Rico.
I'm just kidding. They're at least 26.
He's good on the island. Don't worry, he's good.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things where, once you become a father, and I started working with my daughter, and you're one-on-one, hands-on with them, and then around the same time, I meet my wife, and it's everything. All this magic happened. I had Angelica, I had Jay Lynn, and I've never really felt like there was a rush for my career. You know, some people give a time span. They're like, oh, well, you're hitting this age. I never felt that way. I've always felt like if you really love to do something, you're going to do it either way.
It's going to always be there.
Yeah, there's a passion that's never going to stop. Like
But now you have a different passion in your kids.
Oh, my kids. It's the funniest thing. It's crazy because my oldest, she could sing if she wanted to. My little one, my Jay Lynn, she's into cheer and she's moving. I saw my son. I don't even know where he got the breakdancing from, but we were at a party and he's like on stage spinning and doing circles, and I'm just
He's
like,
in the garage looking for cardboard.
yeah. I'm just like, you know, you missed it by about 40 years, but
Let's go buy him a pair of shells. He'll be all right.
Hey,
yeah,
okay.
a couple
It'll come back soon. Yeah, everything comes back.
It'll come back around.
Breakdancing will come back sooner or later.
yeah, but when you watch it and you're like, oh, and then we would play with him on turntables, and when you see your little guy run up and he grabs the turntables, and all of a sudden he grabs one ear and he's like, this, and I got him, and he's just playing, and that's one thing. Like whenever we go out, you know, sometimes parents when they see like the kids run up to the equipment, they be like, no, don't touch, da, 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 da. I'm like, no, they're kids. Let them see. What if he breaks it? Trust me, he's not gonna break it. I'm right here. He could spin the turntable if he wants. He could do this. Are you sure? I'm perfectly fine, because there's something in that little kid that made him run and do that.
You're also encouraging the behavior that you want. You know, obviously, being so passionate about audio engineering, you want
Yes.
your children to follow suit.
It would be great if they did, but they've already told me on more than one occasion. They were like, "Dad, that's you."
Yeah.
I've asked. I was like, "So what are we doing?" And James like, I was like, "I guess the son, you."
Yeah, let them go out and find their.
Hey, you
their
just want to come to the studio? No, Dad, that's all right.
It'll be here for.
Meanwhile, they got TikTok 2,000 views and all this other stuff going on every week. I'm like, Jesus, you girls,
They'll come back around.
they will.
They'll come back around.
They're at that 16, 17-year-old mark.
They
so-
know
Oh,
it.
they know everything now.
Oh yeah. I mean, with Google though, they really.
It's
no
not. It's
kidding.
not too far.
We had to figure it out on our own.
You gotta go to
Now it's a click
yeah.
of a button. You can figure everything out.
Common sense is like, well, that's not what Google said. I'm like, well, did you check your source? I tell them that now. I'm like, check your source. But it's just Wikipedia. That's not an accurate source. You could create whatever. I'm Batman on Wikipedia. What are you
But
talking about?
with Silk City, and even
Yes.
now, you are. So you're a creator. Yes, that's your love and foremost in everything. But you're also a small business owner.
Yes.
Okay, with Silk City, you're a small business owner, and that comes with its own brand of suffering. You got to keep the lights on. You got to pay this. You got to pay that. You got to bring money in because you want to make this your
You still have
career.
to provide for your family.
Now you got to
Yes.
become business savvy on top of learning all the audio stuff. Was that a hard transition to learn the business aspect of it?
So fun fact, immediately after high school, I went and got my associates. So I went to Berkeley College. I was immediately like swamped into. I was taught business first. I already knew how to write songs and how to perform and do all this stuff. I was taught business. And I understood when I was looking even at people around in the industry, I'm like, the math doesn't add up. Somebody's doing the numbers wrong. Because I could sit there and I could see that. And you guys know when it comes to numbers, I'm pretty accurate. I'm pretty on point.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, when the numbers don't add up and the math doesn't add up, that's when I kind of step away from things. Because then I know that something's not right. You know, so the business aspect of things. So for example, and just on the topic of music, I'm going to say it like this. Most people want to get a hit song on the radio or a hit song on TikTok now, right? Oh, my song is trending. Da, 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 da. That's great. That's not really where you want to get a hit song. Do you guys know where you should really get a hit song at?
On a commercial? On the Tonight Show?
In fact, Elvis, the movie, Doja Cat has a hit song that's on that. Okay?
Actually, you know what song made the most money in the world?
Which one?
I'll give you the artist. The artist is Paul Anka.
Paul Anka. Okay.
You know who Paul Anka is?
I have an idea, Paul.
He wrote the theme to the Tonight Show.
Oh, okay, to the Tonight Show.
That Johnny Carson Tonight Show.
Actually won the most on it. Titanic. My Heart Will Go On.
Yeah.
Oh, by Celine Dion.
Celine Dion.
Do you know how much she made just off of that?
I can't
I'm
imagine.
sure she get royalties every time the movie plays too.
People,
So every time the Tonight Show played, Paul Anka got a royalty.
Yeah.
Every single night.
And probably reruns.
Yep.
So every single time, so that's where one thing about the industry, even now when I'm talking to younger artists on the come up and they tell me, oh, I got this, I got that. I'm like, your songwriting abilities that you want to have. First off, you got to kind of get the pride out of your way. I was like, because you have to learn how to really write a song. They think, oh, I got a verse, I got a chorus, I got it. No, you need your bridge, you need to space it out. You know, there's more that you need to do. You turn around and I'm like, now, if you could get into a movie, like when Hangover came out and Flo Rida had that song, You Spin My Head, the remake, right?
Yeah.
Paid. Every time. He's going to be paid.
Think they'll pay for my intro to?
I was going to say.
They will.
It's
time for the Suffering Podcast.
Right,
Get
so
your ass down.
The Suffering Podcast, the movie, in theaters 2028.
Listen, when that film comes out, when they do the
make a movie about
They made Strange Brew with Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys get
Dumb and Dumber.
You're gonna have a Netflix series. You're gonna have a series on Netflix that's gonna turn into a movie. You know, Netflix only does for 2 to 3 seasons. That's all you get.
That's fine.
So you're gonna get about 2 seasons. 3 seasons the most.
Camera's gonna follow us around to Florida again.
And then afterwards, guess what you get after you get your 3? Then you get a movie.
Yeah.
No, we could just set up cameras in the production room.
And we can make a whole movie just off of that right there.
Just in there.
Whole movie just like
Showing
that.
each other Instagram posts.
Yeah.
That.
Animated though. We're gonna do the whole thing animated.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a filter on it.
That's Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, and it just goes. But so that's one of those things you learn, right? Nobody told me that when you walk through the door. Everybody tells you need to get downloads or CD sales or this other stuff. Nobody told me that.
You know, going to college the way you did for audio engineering versus on the job training.
Yes.
In your opinion,
Yes.
what is the more valuable education that you had?
For when it just comes to recording?
Just audio.
When it comes to just audio, honestly, being out there on the field training, there's nothing. Listen, you could read the book and all that other stuff, but when you're all of a sudden caught and something's not going right, and you're trying to remember all those texts and everything, it doesn't.
But, you know, and we said it about law enforcement. The police academy gives you the basic.
Yes.
You know, it gives you the basis, I guess you could say, for your career. You got to learn every day on the job.
Yes.
Correct. I used to, the thing that, and I don't know if it's the same in your industry with police work, used to have a lot of old veterans that used to come and say, well, you know, you don't really know this job until 5 years. Yeah. The smart older guys would say, here's what I think. You have so much more book knowledge, current book knowledge than I have being a 25-year veteran because it's fresh in your mind.
It's new to you.
I have experienced stuff. You'll get to where I am. But in the meantime, let's learn from each other. So guys coming out of college right now, girls coming out of college right now with that audio engineering degree.
Yes.
You can learn as much from them as they can for you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
The industries, listen, there are things I learned in that school that honestly I wouldn't even want to do right now. Not that I can't, like make a microphone cable. I can make a microphone cable. Do I want to make a microphone?
They're $10. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why'd you waste all that time?
But if you're in a situation where the mic's not working right and you have the tools and the problem is the cable, and let's say for some odd reason things around you are closed, now it's going to be tough breaking out a soldering kit, but I could slice the cable and resolder if I needed to.
Right. You know, and it's good to have that knowledge. It's a just in case thing.
It's just in case.
And I'll take it back. So I had a summer job. One of my favorite summer jobs for many years was putting up swimming pools.
Okay.
And we used to make more money off of people who tried to put up their own swimming pools because they would always be screwed up. So you're not paying for perfect conditions. You're paying for when things go wrong. You're paying for experience. Yes. That's when somebody comes to you with their audio issues.
Yes.
Anybody can, especially with the new phones now, anybody can record anything on their phone.
Oh, yeah. They're making hits all the time.
And you can filter it. You can put echoes. You can do all sorts of different things with it. But that's perfect conditions. If you want it to sound professional, then you have to go to somebody like you.
Yes.
At what point did it start transitioning into podcast work?
Into podcasting. The way it all started was I used to do Coffee Time Live. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Which is still going on.
Still going on, right? Coffee Time Live, I was doing it every day when I got to the job beforehand. That's how it started. I would go in there, and before my shift started, I would start maybe 5-10 minutes doing Coffee Time Live. After I do about 5-10 minutes Coffee Time Live, I would start my day, I would get feedback, all this other stuff. It's great. Still doing Coffee Time. And then when me and Marv hooked up, doing
Marv
this
the
thing-
producer, I'll
Marv
give
the
him a
producer,
shout out.
I'll give him a shout out to Marv the producer. We kept on doing Coffee Time Live. We were just and then we created a different show and all this other stuff. And we worked together really well for a while.
Well, so there's a big difference. There's a
Yes.
big difference.
Yes.
And this is not a knock on Marv because I don't know Marv.
Yeah.
But I do know people who record at Bravery Studios.
Okay.
I do know people who record there. And I'll talk to them and they'll tell me, oh, he's great. He does this, this, and this.
Yes.
The thing I'm not telling them is all the extras that you do here at A&J Media. Like there's a lot of extras that you do.
Yes. There's
You're a very service-oriented studio.
Because he's like meticulous. You know, Drew's meticulous in what he does because he's putting his stamp on it. You know,
Yep.
so he wants us to succeed because of us, but also because of him.
Sure.
it's not so much as so that's like a difference, right? So you could see where the talent could really go, you know? And every single time I worked with plenty of great podcasts, and I'm like, well, maybe if you guys do this, some people listen, right? Some don't. That's okay. But I always look at it from the listener's perspective, from the viewer perspective. Let me take a step back. Let me see what they're seeing. And then how can I make this like full on engaging? How can I make this even hotter than what it is?
Mm.
And that's really my aspect on it. I mean, technically speaking, when we were first even working on the intro for the Suffering podcast, remember, and you were like, oh, we kind of have like this fire and flame thing. And I was like, well, we could do something like this. And now every time we open up intros, it's nice. It has this nice design.
Well, he did come up with that new.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you honestly. So I did a very rudimentary version of that, and then Drew took it to the next level.
Yeah.
Where he synced the flames to the beat, and when it was a minute, if you go back into some of our newer or older video episodes,
Yeah,
you'll see that.
Started, yes.
You'll see that full intro,
Kim DiPaola.
and
Yeah.
the flames surround the logo and pop at the right time when the beats hit. It was
The transitions that hit on. But so basically, that's like the perfect, what you just said is perfect. You have a great idea, and I see you trying to capture in the idea. And that's why whenever I'm working with anybody, I tell them, well, tell me your idea. Because my idea is to try to capture the best of what you're seeing.
you take the ordinary and you put some magic on it.
You know,
and
he
you turn it into
did,
the
he did
extraordinary.
that right here one night, right after we did a show. I think we were talking about. He was talking about upgrading the intro to it. We were sitting right in the control room, and he just put the flames around it and worked on it from there.
I show you. And that's the difference. Like you have to really, it's not so much, and I say this all the time, and you could go anywhere where somebody just hits record. That's anywhere. Anybody could go.
And I got to tell you, that's probably 99% of the studios around. It's just, okay, you want to record a podcast, come in, go.
And this is the problem. And it's not just with anybody in most of the industry right now will be looking at a clock. The clock will be like, okay, this is going, it's been an hour, 61 minutes, 62. So they're going to pay for a second hour. They went over. They know it's an hour. That's more money on it. There's like a level of where people are forgetting that it's art, that you're creating something, that you're dealing with something that somebody envisions, that they have. It is art. It is what you guys are creating every week. Every week, the Suffering Podcast, right, speaks one-on-one with people and helps them get through tough times. Truth. You two both have dealt with tough times in your life and still are coping and dealing with it. So when
Tough times every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. I mean, listen, and then we deal with that, right? And so each week is a brand new episode. Each week is something new. And I say it all the time. I'm like, but each week we're capturing something new. It might be, somebody might have listened to all 100 episodes, right? But this might be somebody's first time seeing this episode. That's important.
I've listened to all 100.
So
he just listens to episode 9.
I've listened to all 100.
He listens to 9 and now 99.
I've listened to 900 episodes.
900.
400 and episode 90.
All those plays came from 99. So that's where it comes into like production. That's where you start producing a show and you're no longer just.
But sometimes you have to polish a turd. Okay, and I know you're.
He does it for us every week.
Andrew
I know that.
Is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life, and he doesn't say anything bad about anybody. But I know in the back of your head, because you're human, you'll watch something and you'll be like, yeah, that's bad. And then you got to go do your magic.
I do my best, and my wife, she says, you really don't, and I'd be like, and 100%, I've a long time ago, I do my best to just be like, I'm not here to judge. You understand? I'm not. I'm here to try to make it happen, right? So yeah, you're gonna have a couple interviews where you're sitting across the table and you're like, oh my god,
We've had them.
Why did we do this?
Yeah, listen, I know there's plenty of things that Andrew had to
They're
cut out and put on that cutting room floor. Things that I said.
Well, sometimes when people slip, I'm like, we really can't. So that's got to be cut, or you see.
You lose a lot of content. Yeah.
Or sometimes, and it's whenever I cut anything, I have to make sure that it's still following the trend of the conversation.
Right.
You can't cut and all of a sudden everybody's laughing. You're like, well, what did I miss in the joke?
Right.
Andrew also chimes in and tells us when to bring up our sponsors.
Yes.
Which it's time for.
It's just about time for a sponsor.
It's so,
right on cue.
The what you do is so important that we're having an event at the Grand Saloon, as you know very well, on the 21st of December. This episode will be airing just about that time. And you're going to be, Grand Saloon is 940 Van Houten Avenue. They've been very, very generous to us.
Yes. Got spam on the menu this week.
You had to figure out how to take something that could potentially be disastrous and make it sound like a show. Because we're going to be recording now.
Yes.
And you're going to have all the background noise. And
so,
well, I have tools.
You have to figure that stuff out.
My toys.
And I hate doing this, but unfortunately, because of your knowledge base, I have to do this to you sometime where I just like hand you a bunch of pieces and like, Drew, I need help. I can't put this together.
Well, listen, I'm Reverie, and she'll tell you, I'm great at Tetris. So when I have to figure things out and I'm working on all these different boxes coming in my way, I'm like, it all just kind of clicks.
Spin it, bring it down.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a little hard for me to explain. So when I tell people sometimes and they're like, well, you're like this, you're like that. And I'm like, no, it's because I could kind of see it. So even when you give me that set and I could see everything that's on the table and I'm like, okay.
It's a puzzle.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what is it you want to get to? Well, this is what I would really like to get. Okay, cool. Then we don't need this. We don't need that. This is the main thing that's going to happen. We're going to push that up there. And then before you know it, we got rid of all the fat on the steak. And now we got a good meal.
But you're the type of guy that could think on the fly pretty good too. I mean, we sat here a couple times and he just, we're like, what are we going to do? And he's, I got to fix. Don't worry about it. Just sitting on the fly and fixing things right there.
Well, tonight, for instance,
tonight's
a perfect example of you're not here because it's always perfect.
You weren't our scheduled guest.
I was not the scheduled. Shout out to not being I was not.
Hashtag not my guest.
Not my guest.
But tonight was an on the fly episode where you just had to figure stuff out. We don't have anybody behind the board.
We don't.
So it's you doing two jobs right now.
Yes.
Guest and
yes.
You still got to.
And the editing is going to be fun. Yes. The editing will be fun. Yes. But you know what? You can either make excuses or you can make results.
Or you can get it done.
That's it. Like, I don't believe I could spend more time, and most people do this. They spend more time creating excuses rather than just doing it. Just, I can't do this because of this, and I can't do this because of that. And if I wait and I'm like, oh my God, why don't you just try it?
I always say people complain more trying to get out of work than they do actually working.
Just do it. Just get the job done.
You know who does that is Verizon.
Verizon.
So
what's your beef with Verizon?
There's a team when I was working a road job.
So see, it's a past thing. It's a past thing.
I was working a road job for Verizon, and they had to put a new telephone pole. So when you put a new telephone pole in, you got to move the wires from one pole to the next pole. There's two different teams that do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched these two teams argue. And all the guy putting the telephone pole in, he was alone. He goes, I just need like 5 minutes of help.
Yes.
The wire team, that's not our job. And they argued for half an hour.
Yeah, when it could have been done.
And I'm standing there going, guys, just do something. I don't feel like standing out here anymore. 5 minutes. They finally gave in and helped them. 5 minutes, the pole was in, done. But instead of doing it 5 minutes, where tonight's episode, the scheduled guest, there was an issue. And I watched you and I said, Drew, what do you think about this? And we're just sitting in the control room. What do you think about it? Let's do this. We're here. Let's record this episode. We wanted to do this anyway. Next thing I know, you're gone. and you're setting up cameras, you're figuring out how this work. I got to clear memory
I got
off
to clear
the
this
hard.
memory card. I got to clear that memory card. I got to do this.
Well, you know, we could have easily sat back over there and said, well, guys, it's not happening tonight.
Mm.
You said it
Yeah.
yourself. You're like, well, we're all here. Why don't we make something happen? And I'm just kind of like, yeah.
We've done this before.
Yeah, let's make something happen.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we could have sat over there. We could have gotten upset. We could have gotten, oh, this didn't happen. This didn't work out. That's that.
Well, I'll still be upset. There's plenty of time after.
Yeah.
Be upset.
But you know
A
what?
lot of time to be upset now.
I say it all the time. I'm not putting my energy into that.
Right.
I'm not putting my time into that because now that person gained that from me.
Mm.
I'm not giving you that. That's why I'm just like, no. I'm like, it's okay. You could kind of move on.
You know, if you were a new engineer
Yes.
and we were new podcasters, we would not be recording.
No,
Oh,
I'd be home already.
Yeah.
No, I think a new engineer, especially new engineers, need to learn a lot of patience.
So where do you see your profession going? You're the proprietor of A&J Media Studios. I know your wife Katia is super involved in this whole thing.
Yes.
Where do you see this going? Is podcasting going to be the main focus?
I want to be able to grow into really more into the full network. I think there's a lot of room in the podcasting industry. I don't think it's just
Well, there's no
one.
competition. You know, we're not in competition with anybody.
We're-
Like we say all the time, it's not like a radio show. It's not like we have
We're
a
sharing
time slot.
space.
Yeah, we're not on 6 to 10 a.m.
The beauty about podcasts is that we say it all the time, right? People are listening to a specific niche. That's what they're listening to. And just like anything good, if all of a sudden, was it like Mike's Hot Honey? Just like anything good, right?
Hashtag Mike's Hot Honey.
That's correct.
You put it on, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this works on here, this works on that, this works on wings.
Mike's
this
Hot
works
Honey
on-
works on everything.
So that's the point. So you,
We
so
had this whole conversation before.
right? So if you turn around and you have like this niche, it's kind of the same thing, right? You like something, you're more than likely to listen to a similar show. And it's very simple. So the idea of being able to help people, and regardless of people, oh, Drew, no, you're really helping people.
Mm.
So we start with the Suffering Podcast. I think the Suffering Podcast is great. In the future, as we grow, maybe we branch. Maybe we find a podcast that, okay, we have one that talks about mental health. Okay, maybe
The
there's
Suffering Podcast Network.
the Suffering Podcast Network. And then you bring people physical, right? Then you get somebody that maybe just focus on, hey, we're only talking about physical. We focus, the Suffering Podcast says, hey, Then we go to there. And you could just branch out, diet, eating, and we're helping people
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. And I feel like we could probably use a little bit more of that in the world.
Yeah. And how many podcasts episodes in your understanding have you actually done in your career?
Like me just solo recording?
Yeah.
Oof, I don't know. It's been a while now.
You say more than 100?
Yes. I could easily say more than 100.
Well, yeah, it's got to be. I mean, we're
Well, he hasn't done all 100 of ours yet.
no,
but
but you've done 30, what 30,
36.
39?
just on the Suffering Podcast alone.
Right.
That's not counting on we did the Elite Show,
Mm-hmm.
John Elite. There's a couple of other shows I could say, but they're still being produced. Shout out to Your History, Your Story.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We helped
James,
there
with the
James
Gardeners.
and the Gardeners. Let me see. We also were doing Podcasters
Podfest.
Podfest. So
We're all
there's
going down to
we're all
Podfest.
going down to Podfest. So there's so many different shows that I worked with and been on, but each one was different in their own sense. Like I said, I really do take that new approach on it because that's just really.
Well,
how
you
I
give
like to
sound
treat it.
advice. That's my biggest compliment I can give you. You
Thank
give
you.
sound
He's a
advice.
great springboard.
Yeah, ideas need to be cultivated, just
Yeah.
like a garden. So we'll sit around before the guest gets here and we'll throw out an idea. Well, what think of this, and then Mike will say something, you'll say something, and it's a round robin type of thing until we cultivate it enough where it starts to grow. And once we get it down and we focus on it, that's and you're part of that team. I mean,
Well, look at the transition, and anybody who's still just doing just a straight podcast, think about the transition. The transition to video just happened in June. We laid out a
May.
plan. May we started
May, yeah.
recording,
May
but
we
it aired in June,
right.
right? Started in May. From June, July, August, September, October, November, we're just 6 months in. Within 6 months, the show has now over 5,000 subscribers. Every episode gets 5,000 plus plays because some do 10, some do 13, some do 17. Think about all the interesting guests that have come down. It's huge growth.
There's a nice library of work out there for you, not only for yourself, but for us as well. We're super appreciative of the guidance because pretty much everything you've said has happened. And I fought you on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's where being open-minded in this industry is. You have to be able to. So,
by the way, it's not my fault that I fought you on the intro.
What?
I come
Whose
from an
fault is it?
era of long guitar solos and intros.
Yes, long intros. I'm with you. No, I love having a 1 minute intro on a song beforehand. Maybe they're talking, maybe they're doing that.
That's
But
what you do. And that was where I.
you ever
that's
heard of
where
a salsa song? You know how long a salsa song plays for?
I love watching Telemundo.
It's like forever that they go on.
We'd have about 2 minutes of content after the whole salsa song played.
But think about it like this. Here, let me break it down. You have an editor, right? The content creators, you guys are creating the episode. You do the intros. Okay, that's one part of the show. Now you have the editor. The editor goes through, cleans up the audio, does the work, right? The mixing engineer, you go back, you do a mix on it, making sure it sounds nice. The producer, he's watching everything on it. Shame on me for bumping my
Yes,
own
try
horn.
not to hit the microphone.
Yeah, shame on me.
He's always in our ear. Stop hitting the microphone.
Stop hitting the microphone.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
at my own fault. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Oh, my God. Did you really take a pen and do that? All right, so I'm going to pause it right here to edit the whole thing out. Oh, my God, that's saved for later. But, so there's different parts to the puzzle, and everybody has it. I think the hardest thing is when you have to let go of that little baby and say, hey, you're in charge of this now.
It's hard to do.
Oh,
It's extraordinarily hard to do. I know that from my own perspective.
Yeah.
For season 3, we're revamping certain things in here. We're revamping certain things all over.
Yes.
And it's hard for me to let that stuff go because I put a lot of work into this stuff.
It's like giving up the basement.
Yeah, it was hard. It was extraordinarily hard. But I knew in order to grow, I knew what we had to do. We had to bring in a pro. We had to come to A&J Media in order to make our vision come true.
And all this really, and special thanks. I know we started saying, but to my wife, Katia, because when we were creating that video for Blue, right? You guys should know, and I said this was on the moment. Everything that happened in like such a sync. I want you guys to know that I wasn't scheduled to be there for that video shoot.
That I didn't know.
The day before, and once again to my wife, she's like, hey, you really got to come meet this guy, Dan. I come down, I'm like, I'm not expecting this. I'm in regular clothes. I'm not shaved. I'm not nothing. I just come up. I'm like, hey, it's good to meet Papa. It's like, I have this idea for the video. And the moment he started talking to me, everything started running. And I'm like, yeah, but okay. And he was like, I'm going to do it. He was like, I'm going to do it with my phone. And in my mind, I'm like, no, you're not.
Don't do that.
I'm like, you're not going to do it because I understand the bigger purpose. All right. I go down and I just bring my cameras in case. I go to the scene, I see everything set up. I'm like, no, we're going to record. So that day when you saw me for the first time, it was all boom, boom, boom set up. Like it was all it just laid itself out that way.
And that was like February or something.
Yeah, like you said, we had just gotten back from Florida.
And, now we're here. Me personally, there's a couple other studios in the area, but me personally, I need to have a personal relationship with somebody. So when Mike and I were discussing coming to video, I'm like, well, listen, I got the place. The only place that I would like to record is with you because when I first met you, I could tell your passion, like your passion bleeds right through in everything that you say. You've been doing this for quite some time.
Yes.
And so I just see onward and upward. You're doing different rooms. You're building audio booths, sound booths, which I don't have to come in here and do the openings anymore. I just do them right in there.
The idea is I want you to be able to walk in and to do just like that. Hey, if you want to do an audio book or an intro or anything like that, you just walk right into one booth and it'll be all set.
Well, so one of the things that my kids don't listen to this anyway. So one of my youngest son loves to sing.
Okay.
And I've already talked to you about this. Is I think what I'm going to get him for Christmas is I want a studio song.
Yeah,
I want
record a
one
demo.
studio song that he will have forever.
One of my proudest moments was being able to record my father.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
He came down. I have some magical moments I could tell you about. He came down And he asked me, he said, what do you want to do on your birthday? I said, well, I would really like to record you. He said, that's really what you want to do for your birthday? I said, come down to the studio.
My kids always try to record me in the bathroom.
Oh, man. Well, that's for the show, the suffering of poop.
They think it's hilarious.
But, he came down and he sang a guitar and he's playing it and da-da-da. And I'm like, boom, it's a moment. There was, listen.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're capturing moments in time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's magic. There was, may he rest in peace, Kathia's, I think it's Kathia's grandfather when he passed, had all these old cassettes and he used to play the accordion and he would sing. And they asked me, they said, well,
Costa Rican playing the accordion.
Yeah, you know what? He was a very great man because he taught all of his kids how to play instruments and all of his kids, he pretty much was the Spanish Jackson 5. Okay, let's call it what it was, but I think it was like the Jackson 9 because there's a lot of them.
Did he live in the Nevermind Ranch?
Yeah.
The Jackson Quattro.
Listen, but so
Cinco.
I saw
Cinco,
videos,
whatever.
and he's so super cool. So he does all this, and Katia tells me that he does all this without anybody teaching him. He learned himself. So she brings me these tapes, and I'm like, well, what can you do with them? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, the audio's kind of, think about the time. Think about what I have. And it's just recordings. I was able to take that audio, clean it up, fix it up. I was able to put a demo for him and hand that to his kids.
That's salvaging stuff.
To Kathia's mother and father. And when you talk about emotion and a feeling, you have a version of your father captured that you thought that maybe would never even sound, because I cleaned it and
So there's
beautiful.
There's something that I heard the other day that is slowly going away because of people like you. They say when people die, a library is burned to the ground. Okay, all those memories, all those experiences, they're all gone. With people such as yourself who record these shows, they are now making sure those libraries, while they are charred and some of the items in there are destroyed,
Yes.
not all of it's destroyed. There is stuff that moves on.
When someone passes, you generally just have pictures of them.
That's it.
I would love to hear my mother's voice one more time.
I have 5 pictures of my great-grandfather that I never knew existed until the family just put their heads together and we all sort of put them together. You're really, when people die, like Mike said, that you pretty much only have pictures left. And you're saving those things. You're making sure those libraries don't burn to the ground.
In those sense, even the pictures, when they do like pictures restorations, you're seeing your family in a light that hasn't been seen before. And so you have these, that's why I tell people it really is creative. It's what you're making. And every single time somebody steps in, whether it's a demo, whether it's a group of friends sitting on a table and saying, hey, remember when we had that podcast and we were doing da-da-da? Or remember when we started ba-ba-ba-ba-ba? And you're like, yeah, play the video on that. Oh, Dad, you didn't have a podcast 20 years from now. I did have a podcast. Check it out. It was on YouTube.
Can you imagine when we die, our voices are still going to be out there?
Forever.
I told my kids, and they laugh at me. I was like, listen, I don't know if it's going to be ready at the time, but if I could get like a hologram made, like Superman's dad.
Tupac.
Yeah,
They brought Tupac back.
Yeah, just have that whole thing where I just kind of hover around and teach you kids. Be like, no, stop doing that. You're messing up. No, don't do that. Oh, shut up. No.
You got to start recording yourself now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to do all the recording now.
Sit down and shut up.
It just can't be that one music video.
Don't talk back to your...
Sit your ass down. It's like, how come this sounds so familiar? Sit your ass down.
Dad, stop it. Dad, stop it.
Stop touching that.
How can somebody find A&J Media?
A&J Media, you could connect with us online, anjmedia.live.
Can we get the producer to put the lower thirds up so we can
right here?
Them?
Listen,
We're
not even going to have our logo on there. It's just going to be the A&J logo on there.
It's going to be right here. So this is where the lower third comes in for those who don't know. And the lower third is that's a perfect example, something as simple as that. That it takes a little finesse. You put it in at the right time. It's meaningful to take the presentation up. And some don't even want to do it. Is what it is.
Well, we certainly appreciate you, and if you want to look at what Drew can do, just go to episode 99, The Suffering of 9D9, which was recorded with Mike and I sitting like this, and our logo looks beautiful.
That really does look sharp.
And that's a blank, for those of you who know, that's a blank wall. And
it doesn't look like it was like superimposed up there. It
no,
looked like
it
was
highlights on it and everything. It was really good.
It's all about the opacity.
Drew, I was just going to say, Drew, I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done for us. I mean, you've been excellent. You've made us what we are today. Not that we're much.
No, you guys, I know we joke a little bit. Listen, you guys are not just, you guys are big. And I don't care what you guys say, because you guys are big, because you're impacting people in a positive way every single time.
I get a lot of joy out of coming in here every week. And I know
joking around.
I get it's fun time for me. Some guys go out to a bar, they hang out with their boys or whatever. I enjoy coming in, sitting down with a guest, talking to you beforehand, and we know exactly. We're starting to work with each other for 6 in the short 6 months. I think we figure out really good. I know you were sitting behind the board, and you know when I'm going to talk. You kind of know when he's going to talk, and you know where to put the cameras and the right. You just got everything figured out.
You know when I'm going to talk, but not what I'm going to say.
Yeah, you got to get ready for the. Now I'm like, so what is Mike going to say? And is the guest going to get across the table today?
I told Kevin, that almost happened. I need a speed bump between my brain and my mouth. That's what I need.
So the next time that happens, what you need to do is just let him talk and like the old samurai movies.
Oh, where it gives like a delay.
Just dub it in.
Mike's always dubbed in. He's never on time. His voice is
moving.
His voice is always.
When the mouth keeps moving,
I'm gonna record Mike in the voice. I'm like, so Mike, this is what you said during this part. I'm gonna record you in that booth. You're gonna come over, say this, and I'm just gonna voice it over. Okay.
So this is episode 103.
103.
All right, so we're gonna have to start hashtagging episode 103.
103.
Do you know the episode? We're gonna do episode 103. It's gonna come out awesome.
This is gonna be the best produced episode ever.
The transition is always gonna be smooth. There's gonna have moments.
But the problem is, there's only one camera the whole time. It's gonna be
little word to the wise. If you want a well-produced episode, have your producer in as a guest.
Yes.
That's the trick.
It's gonna be like, how come it's all color graded? It looks like a movie. It's gonna have the bars up and down.
So now when we hit episode 203, it's gonna be the suffering of 103 in episode 2.
Yeah. I better have an assistant back there by then.
Yeah, that's where we're going. And I told you what our ultimate goal is for the Suffering Podcast. Now, this is not a joke. I want one room in your studio dedicated to the Suffering Podcast.
Well, we're gonna do it just like Run DMC did with Aerosmith. We're just gonna knock the wall down. And like, this is our okay. We're gonna walk with a mic stand and just say break it through.
Walk this way.
Yes, I did.
Andrew, I can't thank you so much for doing this. This is a long time coming because I really wanted to have you in here. I know you deal with a lot of crap that people don't realize. People see the lights, people see the good production and stuff, and think it just happens. But there's a lot of work that goes on behind.
We don't just turn on the lights and then turn them off and go home.
No,
there's a lot more behind the scene work that goes on.
So as always, the last question of the night is always you spent this time in this. I have to call it a passion of yours.
Yes.
Through audio engineering and through video podcasting. You've learned a lot. You've learned the good. You've learned the bad. What do you think the suffering of a podcast producer has taught you?
It's funny because you're always behind the board when you hear that. So this is the first time being in front, and I'm like, oh.
Is it as impactful?
I'm like, I'm just like, wait, this.
You want to go behind a window and ask?
Yeah, I'm like, this all sounds familiar to me. What's the suffering? That pretty much, I think what the suffering has taught me is that through the suffering comes beauty. That you sometimes have to endure, because what a lot of people don't get is, even as a business, when you're starting, you really have to have a leap of faith. You kind of have to go in. So there was times, and I'll say it right now, that there were times where you're like, oh man, is this going to work? Is this going to happen? You're counting money, you're counting that, but you kind of move forward with it. So you need that faith. That's just the truth of it. But the suffering really, what you go through, makes you. And it's going to make you even better than what you were.
I think you have the unique ability to envision the invisible and create the impossible.
Thank you.
And I'm going to leave it with that, and that's going to end it.
That's the way to kiss his ass to end the show.
Well, I have to. Otherwise, he's going to make me look like shit, and all of a sudden you're going to look good.
You can't make me look good.
I actually have a couple.
Yes, he does. He was showing them to me the other day. That's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, the suffering of a podcast producer with our very good friend, Andrew Santiago. And as always, let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Some lessons are learned on the job. Your value is not in what you know when things go right, but when things go wrong. Make that ordinary extraordinary, but most importantly, capture moments in time. And that's going to do it for this episode. Follow us on social media, on TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media outlets. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. Don't forget to listen before you watch. Our episodes air on audio every Sunday. And if you like what we're putting out, make sure you hit like and subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified. And we're going to see you on the next episode of the Suffering Podcast.